So to put it out in front of, general public and get their feedback was fantastic, and it was all positive. There was a couple of people that said they didn't like the lights, which clearly aren't the final thing. But if that was the only comment, that was brilliant. There was a couple of really standout ones where people literally stopped in their tracks walking down and just went, "Oh my God, what is this?"
We ended up with a car that has its own personality, so to speak, but it's very much a homage to the things that I loved from that era. For an original car that I love the original shape of the XJS. It wasn't really given its time.
The normal Elise was 118 PS, so it wasn't even horsepower. The Super Sport, the first generation, was just over. It was 209, so I called it 210. We sort of detuned that base engine, so it's now 200, but revs nicely. Got a nice torque curve. This one is 200, just under 230 horsepower. So that's knocking on double what the original one was.
We've all dreamed about building our own sports car at some point because most of us here are British, right? And for some reason, it's something that British people feel as though we have to do. Make a car, even if we have absolutely zero expertise in it whatsoever. Well, this next chap actually knows what he's doing, and he's clearly on to something really quite special. Everybody, could you please welcome Doug Larkin, please? Great to have you at Annual Service. But if anybody came to see us at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, they may not only be familiar with you, but your car as well, because you had it out on the stand, right?
I did, yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me. It was a dream come true moment, so I have a lot to owe you.
It looked fantastic because we had that. We also had the Lola T70 Can-Am Spider, which was unreal, and the M600 that was parked next to it, and it looked absolutely at home. What was the reception like from Goodwood?
It was fantastic. So this has been in my workshop for a number of years. And it's only been me and sort of, close family that have seen it and get to hear my crazy idea. So to put it out in front of, general public and get their feedback was fantastic. And it was all positive. There was a couple of people that said they didn't like the lights, which clearly aren't the final thing. But, if that was the only comment, that was brilliant. There was a couple of really standout ones where people literally stopped in their tracks walking down and just went, "Oh my God, what is this?"
Oh, absolutely. Having a problem with the lights and then perhaps not reading the massive prototype written down the side of the car and the fact that it doesn't have any colour or interior.
Indeed, yeah.
But the fact that it's at this point, because it's just you, right? There's nobody else in your Larkin team.
No, well, I do. I have a couple of little helpers down the front there, my teamies. But yeah, mostly it's been me, yeah. So from the idea to drawing it, to modelling it on the computer, to engineering the tools, to machining the patterns, to making the moulds, to making the parts, just literally everything, yeah.
That's just incredible. Now, so what I don't understand, let's rewind a little bit. Loads of people here will have grand ideas of doing something to their car. We've got a whole modified lawn of people who have done stuff to their car. I am full of ideas of what I'd like to do to my ratty little 2005 Fiesta ST. But actually putting that into reality is very tricky, especially if you have absolutely zero mechanical knowledge like myself. So what's your background? Have you worked in the industry before? And do you know how to clearly you know how to put a car together.
I'm old enough now to actually be able to say that most of my life has been spent in the automotive industry. So for 25 years now, I've been working in automotive. So my first job at university was at Aston Martin, working on the V8 Vantage. So this car was on my screen for about 7 years, so I know it quite well. And then after that, Jaguar Land Rover. After that, a lot of the design houses in and around Birmingham and Coventry. So cars are a big part of my life.
So what part of, you said you worked on the Vantage, what part was that? Were you on the mechanicals or on the design? Or?
No, so I was on the interior trim team, or rag and fluff, as the dirty guys and the engine stuff used to call us. But the beautiful thing with Aston Martin back then, I don't know quite what it's like now, was it was still a really small team. So we did Vantage, and Vantage Volante, and I think there was about 6 people in the interior trim team. So when you're that small, you have to take on the areas that are around you as well, or the can you just help out moments. So it was a fantastic fantastic place to work because it gave you a really wide appreciation of the different areas of a car, and what's involved in their design and what the requirements and everything that they need.
So a case of, Doug, I know you're working on interior trim, but the aerodynamicist today has got a hangover. Can you come and carve some bits out of the clay model?
Yeah, they didn't quite allow me to do that. And the studio is actually that's like a separate little world. So they look after themselves a little bit. They don't let the dirty engineers in, but not unless you're there to say their design is okay.
But the thing is you know, there's obviously thousands of people that work for car companies, but it takes some real stones to actually go, yeah, I'm going to build my own car. So what was the point of where you went, I want to leave my mark on this industry. I want to do my own thing.
So it's just something I've always wanted to do. As a kid, I was just fascinated with how things work. So, if you ask my mum, there's like literally everything in the house I took to bits to see how it would work. So the appreciation of sort of mechanicals and how things work, that was just in me from the beginning, I think. And then I wasn't that interested in cars until I passed my test. And then that was it, really. It was, cars are fantastic. So, yeah.
But this idea of getting the Larkin down on paper, what was that trigger?
Yeah, I've always wanted to, all the way through university, I was doodling in the sketchbooks, and it was always everything that was out there I liked and appreciated, but it didn't hit the spot, it was missing something for me. So it was always a case of if there's going to be something that's going to be right for me, I'm going to have to do it myself. So that was the real driver for it. But for this, the idea really, really hit when I was working at Aston's and the V8 Vantage, on the V8 Vantage program, and I printed a sort of a watermark copy of it out and then just doodled over it this little speedster design. And I think the only speedster at the time that had been done was the Mercedes McLaren SLR. None of the other stuff had done. So I've had this idea in my head for all these years, and because it's just me with my finances and my ability, I've had to watch all of the other manufacturers come out of their fantastic speedsters. So it's been a bit bittersweet, but it's paying dividends now.
But I think there's something about cars that are built in, not even necessarily the UK, but they're built by small teams or independents like yourself, of where there's a genuine aspect to them. You kind of feel like when a manufacturer comes out with a speedster, it's like, well, we've got the Roadster and we've got the Coupe, so we might as well tick the box and do a speedster. But this is a proper passion project right from the start. What is it about the speedster form that was like, this is what I think?
Absolutely. This was... it's a difficult one to put into words because I think it's best described as I'm sort of chasing a feeling. It's that feeling of what that drive in that car will give you, and that's what's driving me. There was a picture in an Evo magazine years and years ago, and it was of a Zonda, and it was going through the Tuscan Hills. It was just double page spread, back of a Zonda, and you had the Tuscan Hills and the trees on the side, and it just like I want that feeling, So to do that in something like this, where you've got, open top, got the wind in the hair, got noise of the engine, you're in the environment, you're up and down the rolling hills, the sun's setting, it's all of that romantic stuff that I like, and that's what I'm trying to achieve for this. But it's very much being designed and built purely by myself. It's not a car that's designed by a jury of people, which every car in from an OEM will be. Even within design, it is a jury evaluation of your design. And then you've obviously got all the other finance and everything else that goes with it. So that's why those cars, I think, end up a little bit diluted from a singular person's vision.
I think vision is everything when it comes to not even just cars, but everything in life that has some kind of creativity behind it. It needs a strong vision. And you can kind of see that because you have a cohesive design from the very tip right to the back. It's not like we had a department that was designing the left corner and a department designing the right corner, like some certain German car makers. Now, should we get up and have a look around it?
Yeah.
People might not know about this. So, first of all, it's a V8 Vantage underneath, isn't it?
Underneath, yeah.
Now, you have a build thread on PistonHeads on the forums of where you've documented this right from the very start. You bought a V8 Vantage and then did something unspeakable to it.
Yeah, so I bought a perfectly good, low mileage, full service history, beautiful black V8 Vantage. Took off some bits that would come off, and I managed to sell some of those. But I kind of paused at that point because I could actually put it all back together again if I needed to. So it needed that tipping over the edge point, the point of no return. So to do that, I took a reciprocating saw and just cut straight across the roof from can rail to can rail.
Oh my goodness.
And at that point, you are committed. So
I think everybody who's worked on a car before and you've done something quite significant, there is that moment of like, there's no turning back now. But for some people, that might be, I don't know, a Corsa or a 182 Clio, just a beautiful Vantage. But what you've come out with is something that looks absolutely spectacular. So
thank you.
Is there anything that design-wise here, have you got inspiration to kind of classic race cars of old, or what's the thing that makes Larkin tick?
Yeah, it's definitely to do with classic proportions. So I've always loved the fact that the older cars with the wheel arches, you could sit in the driver's seat and you look out over the bonnet and you see the tips of the wheel arches, and that was a really big thing that I wanted to get. So these are actually a lot higher than on a standard Vantage. So that changed a lot of the proportions. And then to change the proportions further, a lot of the old classics, you're pretty much sitting on the rear axle. So things like the old E-types and Healey's and all of those wonderful classic cars. So to do that, I've moved the driver and the occupant back an amount. The windscreen has come back. I think on a standard Vantage, the windscreen actually covers half the engine, which is another gripe of mine. Yeah, you got a wonderful V8 there, and you've covered it. It's like, we need to show this stuff off. So it comes into about here and sweeps back.
Is it the fact that it's just because it's got a very rakish windscreen, the Vantage, that it covers it up, or was the idea? Because the idea would have been also to have moved it as far back as possible. Right?
Yeah, so I think, it's a front mid-engine car, so the engine is behind the front axle.
Yeah.
So that's why it's tucked right away. But it always annoyed me a little bit working at Aston's, is that, you want that, I've arrived at the pub, mates want to pop the bonnet of your car and have a look at the engine. And it was a kind of hidden thing, whereas on things like Ferraris and Zondas and that, it's a jewel within the engine bay, and you pop it open, people coo over it. So I wanted to get a bit of that in there, and I've got some wonderful plans for making the engine bay a really spectacular looking thing.
Also, no plans for a plastic cover that says Larkin on it?
No.
Okay, that's good.
No,
there's nothing more embarrassing than opening the bonnet and going, oh, sorry, let me just remove my plastic cowling so you can see my
There's no
TBs.
space in modern cars as well. I mean, my day job is a lot of reverse engineering, and I do a lot with classic cars. And when you're in and around those, everything's done beautifully. The engine's sort of displayed nicely, everything's routed nicely. So getting a little bit of that in there and tidying that up and making it a bit more special is on the agenda.
Oh, absolutely. I just wanted to point out some bits that I really like about this car. And the thing that stood out to me, first of all, obviously it's very pretty, but this bit down here, oh my goodness, that is just...
Yeah, that was a fantastic day. So you're drawing a lot, and, you draw good things and you draw bad things. Hopefully the bad things are really evident really quickly. But there were some things that just clicked. So what I was trying to do here is, with a classic car, you don't have a lot of bulk. They're generally a lot smaller. So I was trying to lessen the visible height that you see of body colour. And then I like this idea of the fact that you could do interesting colour splits. So you could make this part a different colour. Same with the recessed panel on the grille and the recessed panel on the bumper. So you could get a really neat two-tone thing going on. It gives you lots of options for customisation and personalisation. But yeah, that slash was great. And if you look from the rear quarter, sort of from the... I did a lot of looking at it as though you were following it in a car and seeing what it looks like. And this line here from the sill sweeps up and it follows on to this line around the tailgate. Yeah. So you get this really nice sort of halo visual going on.
We are going to have it in the hangar after it's finished with its staged appearance, so you can actually have a look around the back. But it's just, the design from tip to toe is absolutely stunning. You were telling me actually at Goodwood that you originally had some ideas to potentially muck about with different materials and the lower part of the car, right?
Yes, yeah. And again, this was an idea from back at uni. I wanted to use metals that weren't necessarily or frequently used on a car. So one idea for the grille at the time was to use like a hammered finished copper, and then you could either do smooth copper or hammered finish. You could either let it polish it or let it sort of tarnish and get that lovely verdigris on it. And since then, there have been other cars. Peugeot did it with one of their
Peugeot Onyx concept.
Yeah, and I think there's been a couple of others. But having those areas that you can tailor and just say you can have what you like on it, I think it could be quite exciting with what you can choose to put on it.
And it's so nice of not just everything has to be carbon, everything's got to be tinted carbon. It's to kind of muck around with those materials. It just brings such a refreshing take to the bespoke sports car world, really.
Yeah, I mean, the body's all carbon, so everything is carbon fibre, but there's never been the intention to have bare carbon fibre.
Really? Not anywhere on it, unless, of course...
No, I mean, maybe sort of trims and covers and things on the engine bay, but not on the exterior.
So, that is the outside of the car. Oh, and obviously we've got these...
I call them speed humps. I don't know.
I don't think anybody knows what they mean. I don't think anybody has a word for them. I've heard cowlings. I've heard what I've just done and point and go, those things, because they look
buttresses,
great.
I think.
That's it. Yeah, but that sounds rude. It's because they're almost floating on this prototype here. Is that going to be the idea for the production car? Or?
So one of the things I hated with some of the speedsters that have come out, a lot of them are screenless for a start. And you look, to me, being frank, you look a bit of a plum driving them because you're kind of on display. There's too much of you visible and you're almost sitting out of the car and not in it. So I did have it screenless at one point, and I made the decision to put some A-pillars on and have a screen because it brings the body colour up, which sinks you into the car. And then the same with the speed humps. They can look really tall on speedsters because they go from the low tailgate, but they've got to get to a rollover height for the head. So they end up as these big things. So to try and lessen that bulk of colour, I've made them floating. And what that also does is give me the option to tailor the height. So if you are a taller person, this can be tailored to the height so you still look in the car. Same at the top of the screen. The idea is that each one could be tailored exactly to you. So, where people might move the pedals or tailor your seat, I want to take that a stage further and you actually tailor the car.
And so you look in proportion to the car, because I'm fortunate of being at an immensely average height that I tend to fit just about everything. But if you're blessed with height, then it means that you can actually look like you're in proportion with the car too, which is pretty cool.
Within a tolerance.
Now, mechanical wise, is the plan to keep it Vantage underneath, or are you thinking
no
down or anything like that?
They did a wonderful job. It's a fantastic car. There's no need, I think, to play with that. I'm not going to do a better job than a room full of engineers at Aston Martin.
Us.
They are experts in what they do. They've done a fantastic car, and the only thing I am doing is tuning some things. So I've taken a lot of sound deadening out because I want it to be a bit more of a raw, less cosseted experience. And I've put some harder bushes on so the ride's a little firmer, but it'll be quite softly sprung because there's quite a lot of weight that's come out. There's about 300 kilos of weight that's come out.
And I don't think they were super hefty cars to begin with. Anyway,
they were about 1650.
Oh, okay.
And I'm projecting out. I don't know exactly, but I'm hoping to be around the 1300 mark.
That's going to be fantastic with the 4.7.
So in this one is a 4.3, but 4.3. Yes, with 4.7, or it will still work all over the V12 as well, if you want to really go nuts.
Really very cool. I will address the elephant in the room. If you want to come back round here so we can appreciate the creator of this car. There isn't an interior in it, okay? Had a few people come up to me and going, there's no interior in it. Well, no, it's a prototype, for God's sake. But what's your kind of your idea of what that's going to be? Is it going to be a recreation of what you partly designed back in the day, or have you got a whole new clean sheet?
No, so all new clean sheet, very basic, very clutter-free. So one of my inspirations for the interior actually was if you look at a Ferrari F50. So through the window of a Ferrari F50, all you can see is a steering wheel, a gear stick, 3 dials, and I think a couple of face vents. That's it, because the whole thing is just about driving.
No touchscreens, right?
Sorry?
No touchscreens, right?
There is a radio and a touchscreen because I think sat-nav is something that adds to the car, but it's not on display. It deploys from under the dash.
Oh, so that's extremely tasteful. Now, this has come along a huge way in even just recent months, really, because there was, the fact that you all get ready together.
That's your fault. Yeah.
Well, we were just giving you a helping push, like giving you a target to go for.
No, do you know what? And it has been fantastic. This has leapt forward from you saying, "Can you come to Goodwood?"
Yeah.
It was, knuckle down and crack on with it, and you put the hours in. I'm running on 2 hours sleep from last night to get it here. So
the great reception it's received I'm hoping has been absolutely worth it. Last one, obviously it's coming along really well. Is there an intention to sell this to customers, to create it as a...
That is the dream. Yeah, I mean, my day job, I do a lot of the background work for companies that are doing that.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of experience in producing that sort of thing. And that is the vision for this. I mean, if I can have a little workshop building bespoke cars with a team of, 4 or 5 people, that'd be dream come true stuff.
I can't wait to see that happen. What you can do is, obviously, you can go and see it in the hangar in a little bit, or follow Doug's build thread on PistonHeads. You're still doing that, right?
I am, yeah. The updates have slowed a little bit with
that's fine,
trying to get
it off to the world. So that's absolutely fine. But
if you search for "Building the Dream," cut up an Aston, that'll take you to the thread.
We are all rooting for you, Doug, because what you've created here is fantastic, and it's just it's so good to see someone's passion project come to life. So everybody, give it up for Doug Larkin. Fergus Walkinshaw, you are the W in TWR. This almost feels like it's come out of nowhere a little bit, really, because TWR has obviously kind of been laying low for quite a while, and then it's just kind of emerged in the last couple of years. Has the plan always been to revive your dad's old operation?
Yes, no, I'd always had a bit of a desire to revive the brand and get the name back out there. But it wasn't until more recently, about probably 4 or 5 years ago now, that started looking at it seriously and how we could do it and really revive it.
And what was that? What was that catalyst? What was it that made you go, like, I think now might be the time? Because you've been doing you've kind of got a background in motorsport, right?
Yeah. So before we relaunched TWR, I was running another business which was sort of race car preparation, high-end track cars, all that kind of thing. And I got sort of chatting with who's now my business partner, who was a customer of mine at the time, about the sort of TWR and the history, and we sort of agreed, well, why don't we do something together and sort of try and relaunch it and see where it can go.
Yeah, I mean, and particularly as there's such an emerging market of these kind of boutique crafted cars that are coming out. We're not going to say the resto mod word, but you decided. So there's huge amounts of cars that you could pick at from TW's backlog. Why did you go with the Jaguar XJS?
There's a couple of different reasons, really. I mean, obviously, as you said, TWR worked with so many manufacturers back in the 80s and 90s that we really had quite a big selection to choose from. But the sort of biggest link with one single manufacturer seemed to be with Jaguar, with the cars that went to Le Mans and won, and then sort of second to that was the XJS, which obviously raced in Group A in the 80s, and then obviously went over to Bathurst. That famous video of it going around the mountain, and it's kind of why we settled on the XJS, was because of the link with it. And I think the XJS is a bit of a sort of unloved car.
Yeah.
To an extent. I mean, followed the E-Type, which was, probably the hardest successor to follow. I think it kind of wasn't appreciated in the way it could be, and it seemed like a natural car to try and improve and really give it the life it deserves.
Because the TWR XJS was an absolute fire-breathing monster. And so was that always kind of in the back of your mind, if we were going to create something, make it more along those lines of where it is, you're just going to go all out? Or was there ever a point of where you were thinking, maybe we just make an XJS that's a bit more plush and a bit less rubbish?
Yeah, so the project did start out a lot milder than what we've ended up with.
It might be because of Khyzyl, but we'll get onto that in a bit.
Not just him. I think there's a bit of scope creep. I think sort of started to come in of, if we improve that, that bit's not very good as well. So we may as well do that, and do that. We may as well do this, and it kind of snowballed from there, and it sort of ended up with a project where we've redesigned and re-engineered pretty much every single area of the car to get the best out of it.
That doesn't surprise me, really, because we're dealing with a Jaguar XJS. I would imagine quite a lot of it needs to be redesigned with the amount of power that's going through it. We'll get to that in a moment. Khyzyl, at what point did you get involved? So for those who don't know, Khyzyl Saleem, the Khyzyl on Instagram, is just an absolute whiz kid. I'm going to say that when it comes to digital designs of cars. I've known about you for 10 years. You've been doing it for quite a long time. You had designs kind of in Need for Speed, correct? You know,
Yep.
You kind of know.
It's been a while.
Kind of stuff. You've been for this kind of stuff.
There.
So yeah. So how did you get involved with the TWR lot?
So I mean, yeah, the TWR was pretty much a level up for me in terms of the type of design, the type of car it was, and what was to be expected. But I was brought in technically by Magnus Walker, for those of you that don't know. But also, funnily enough, TWR themselves also had me on their radar for this particular project. So kind of in unison, they both got together, DM from Magnus. It's like, hey, what are you up to at the moment?
The car for me, please.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Like there's a car that might be right up your street. And it turned out to be a project that I never anticipated or expected to be doing, but was incredibly grateful to be given the opportunity to work on something as special as an XJS. Just kind of in TWR form, which is, the dream.
Absolutely. How would you gents feel if we stood up and took a walk around the car? Because there's a lot to go through here, and I thought it'd be a little easier if we could actually point.
Look at them fall off the stage.
Like we did. Yeah, I'm just getting really worried about this chair as well. So, we'll start with you, Fergus. Talk to me about what happens when a Jaguar XJS comes into TWR in Newbury, just around the corner from me. Just how much work needs to be done? I guess a lot of it is kind of getting rid of the rust, right?
Yeah, we try and select owner cars that are as rust free as possible. But because a large amount of the bodywork gets changed to carbon fibre, anything cosmetic rust wise doesn't actually matter. We're just looking for a sort of structurally sound shell. So the build process, the car comes in, gets fully stripped down to a bare shell. The engine goes off into our engine department for its reworking. The shell goes off to get dipped, so all the paint and rust gets removed. It then comes back to us where we do full reinforcement of the body shell and chassis to improve rigidity and repair any rust that is still remaining. It then goes to the body shop where all of the sort of cosmetic steelwork gets removed. The whole bodywork gets replaced with carbon fibre. So any two remaining steel panels are the front and rear scuttles. Everything else is carbon.
Good Lord. Wow.
Then after bodywork's fitted and the shell is painted, it then goes into the full build process where the subframe, reworked engines, that all gets married together, interior, and then hand over to customers.
Incredible. And just how much of the XJS chassis is kept? Because this is quite clearly XJS. This less so. Obviously, this is the bodywork, but are we talking? Is the kind of the centre section still carried over?
Yeah. So the floor pans are original. The sort of A pillars, B pillars are still the original chassis. Same with the firewall. But things like the roof panel, that's cut out. That's a whole new panel. All the rear quarters, that's completely replaced as well. So it's really only the sort of centre that gets retained. And then into the sort of front chassis legs where we reinforce the subframe points.
See, is there any? Do you have a space frame down here at all, or is it still just the?
Yeah, so it is similar to a space frame. We've got sort of a roll cage type structure sort of tucked into the original pillars. It runs all the way through down to the back of the rear subframe points and then forward to the front subframe points, including links down the sills as well.
Khyzyl. You see Jaguar XJS. Luckily, Fergus has kind of ripped off all the XJS bits of it. What is your starting point here? What are you thinking of, like, how do I make this car that is quite famously boaty and turn it into this absolute beast? Supercat, I should say.
I mean, the brief was quite simple. It was to take an XJS, but remake it as a TWR car. So it was kind of digging into what that meant from a design perspective for the car itself. And I knew immediately I wanted it to retain its, you know, you look at the car and you're like, oh, is that an XJS? It looks like an XJS, but it looks a bit different. And it was taking that, but giving the car its own character and personality and silhouette. And for those that know my work, I'm very much inspired by the 70s and 80s era of IMSA, Lister, Koenig, the hourglass shape on cars. And my first initial concept I did of the car was very much based around that. I already had the front fenders, rear fenders kind of locked in, as well as the rear spoiler, making the buttresses functional. It all came together quite cohesively as one piece. And I think unanimously I pitched the first design and we were all in agreement that that was the kind of direction that we want to head towards in, much to my enjoyment.
Relief.
Yeah. We ended up with a car that has its own personality, so to speak, but it's very much a homage to the things that I love from that era. For an original car that I love the original shape of the XJS, and much like Fergus said earlier on, I feel like it wasn't really given its time. You had the Group A cars and you had certain IMSA versions of them, but to kind of have that in road form that is fully functional as well, getting to work with CFD, working with aerodynamicists and going back and forth on the functionality of parts in hand with the engineering side of things it was a lot of fun.
It must have been incredible putting a Jaguar XJS through a wind tunnel. I'm sure some things came out from it, but why don't we, because there's quite a lot going on down the sides, particularly kind of around this section of the car. So how has putting this car through a wind tunnel helped create its form? What have you done to make this a little slipperier?
Yeah, so we did testing on the sort of original bodywork and found that it had considerable lift at both the front and the rear.
Really?
Which might be surprising to some. Yeah, that's for sure. We then took Khyzyl's sort of base design, and while staying sort of faithful to your inspiration and your creative design on it, then went about sort of tweaking and adjusting to the boost spoiler, front splitter, and the cut through on the buttresses. We ended up with a decent amount of downforce, both front and rear, and reduced drag.
It was great though, because originally I did quite a tame front splitter. It still followed the original shape, but it was a lot more rounded, a little bit subdued. Came back from testing like, no, you need to make that longer. It needs to come out this way. Kick air around the tires.
That is a serious lip.
It's a serious lip, but it in my original design, it wasn't ever this aggressive. In order to make it work and functional, it had to get extended, which then helped me sell the design of the lowered roof spoiler to channel air through the roof, down the back rear spoiler and out the back. Because that was a design feature I really wanted to do on the initial version, but it proved to be a lot more work for Fergus and the team. But thankfully, it was backed up by the data.
Nice.
They worked.
Actually coming in useful at some point.
Yeah.
Moving further back, one of my favorite design bits, I kind of want to bring your eye over to here. Talk to me about this little bit right here, because it doesn't look like much, but this on a regular XJS is just plastic, isn't it?
Yeah, so on a regular XJS, this panel here is just a sort of a plastic finisher. What we did was, working with the aero team, managed to channel air over the sort of haunch of the rear, through this duct, out the back, and it channels air to the boot spoiler, which helps with the traditionally sort of messy air that's coming off this flying buttress setup.
It's just so cool because it was only actually until I saw the XJSs at your workshop where I went, oh God, I always thought that was actually a pass-through, but no, now it's functional. Now we can't, unfortunately, go and stand around the back and talk about it because no one's going to be able to see. But let's head back over here. And Khyzyl, we had a really good chat about this, I was going to say a few months ago. It might have been a year ago now.
It was,
just completely lost track of all the time. The back end of this car is really special. There's so much theatre to it. So, after we've, maybe just finish all the stage stuff and then go and have a look at the car later. Have a look at the back end because it's wild. What was the inspiration for that?
So towards the back, I knew initially I wanted to bring in some of the original Jaguar heritage into the car as well. So you have a rear diffuser heavily inspired by the XJ220. And there's a bit of XJR9 in there as well, and XJR15, just, spots here and there. It's
just dramatic.
It's slightly self-explanatory when you look at it. But, I think keen Jaguar fans will notice those kind of small details.
I think especially in this colour, as soon as I saw the back, I was like, you just shoved the back of an XJ220 onto the back, and it just looks wild. Whose idea was the side exit exhausts?
Mine. I just wanted exhaust that match the flow of the body.
Yeah.
And it's if you've seen it go up the hill at Goodwood Festival of Speed, it's a slight fire breather.
Oh yeah, it's not often you see triangular. Oh wait, it's not quite triangular because it's got four sides. I don't know what the word is, but something. So it's an obscure shape, but again, flows with the car really well. Speaking of the noise, a little bit later we will fire it up and rev it up because I heard it at Goodwood. I don't know if any of you heard it. It is apocalyptic is probably the best word to describe it. What on earth have you done under there, Fergus? The noise is ridiculous.
Yeah, so the engine does actually start life as the original Jaguar V12 that comes out of the donor vehicles.
Wild.
But from there is where it really starts to change. The block is retained, and so is the casting of the original cylinder heads. But on the cylinder heads, we completely re-machine the combustion chamber and give it whole new inlet and exhaust ports for better flow, larger valves, double valve springs, titanium retainers, billet camshafts. On the bottom ends, it's a whole new rotating assembly. So forged pistons, forged rods to our design that we've developed in-house. And then we slap a centrifugal supercharger on the top.
It's incredible how the block of an XJS can turn into something like that. Power figures, what are we talking here?
So we're putting out 660 horsepower, which is a little bit up from the originals at 280.
Yes, it's a bit more. I can see why you've had to do so much chassis work now. But it actually looks faster than that on the hill because it was just lighting the rears up the whole time. What weight figure? Do you have a weight figure for it yet, or?
Yes, 1,600 kilos wet.
Oh wow! Right, okay. So yeah, I mean, for a car that is really quite sizable, not too bad at all.
Yeah, about 200 kilos less than a standard car.
Which is with a lot more bodywork, a lot more size to it. Khyzyl, did you have to put those in, or did you want a clean bonnet and then Fergus gave you the engine specs and you're like, oh boy, I've got to take some scissors to this.
Well, the kind of the call from the team was we need as much cooling as we can and heat escapage. I'm like, all right, okay, let me work on something. Yeah. I probably went through 3 different designs for this, but I wanted to kind of try and create something that added to the overall aggression of the car. And it's also highly customizable. You can have it all body color as well and have it as a one cohesive part and design, but it proves its function and
looks flipping gorgeous. Basically, yeah. Before we move on, last one I'll say is suspension. Obviously, it's going to be different from a standard XJS. What have you done there?
So the suspension's actually all brand new. So it's completely redesigned front and rear subframes, tubular arms at the front, double wishbone, multi-link rear suspension, whole new billet uprights that we've designed in-house. And then we've coupled that with electronically controlled dampers. So from the driving seat, you've actually got 5 levels of suspension from comfort all the way to track.
Just perfectly built for cruising, really. Now, what we're going to try and do is I'm going to try and show you the inside. Can I open this door, or am I going to break it off? Okay, cool. It's all fine. It's so light. This is clearly a lot posher. Sorry, you probably won't be able to see it quite as well on that side, but you will be able to see it when it's in the hangar. What's been done to the interior then? Because it's clearly a lot squishier than standard XJS.
So the interior is entirely brand new. The only carryover parts from the original XJS is the original interior door handles and the rearview mirror. The rest of it's all bespoke and new to this car.
And it's not just you've had it specially trimmed. There's the whole dashboard is completely different in the sense that it's digital.
Yeah, so the cluster in the dashboard is a digital screen, but it's actually based on the original layout. So it mirrors what the original car had, but because it's a digital screen, it allows us to display a lot more information.
Absolutely. Before I'll close the door. But if you both had to pick one favourite thing on this car, the thing that kind of makes you go like, I'm really proud of that, or I love that bit, what would it be?
It's really hard to pick any one thing, I'll be honest.
Can imagine.
Yeah, for me, I suppose it's the engineering behind the car and getting it all to work sort of seamlessly together. Obviously, that was kind of my side of things, was on the engineering.
Khyzyl? For me, I'd say the rear 3/4, the kind of the rear buttresses and flowing into the back, ducktail around the back.
The view I've got here is spectacular because it just screams aero. It just looks fantastic.
It's fun as well, though. It's a fun.
I don't have enough fun in cars these days, and I'm glad you guys are having fun. Customization wise, I'm guessing this is people can come and say, is it kind of anything goes, or?
Yeah, we've got a range of options on the car. So some mechanical, so things like carbon ceramic brakes are an option, nose lift. There's a lot of customizability on the sort of visual aspect. So you can have visual carbon in various areas of the car, or you can equally paint every panel. A big range of colours, and then same on the interior. There's different choices for leather colours or Alcantara, and yeah, it's because of the type of car. It's something that customers really want to be able to individualise to them.
Different wheel choices as well.
I love the dinner plates, but is there a variety of dinner plates?
There is. There's a variety of different wheels. You can go 3-piece as well, and if you want something a bit more classical, but the designs are still very much grounded in the sporty kind of look.
I can't wait to see what those look like. This is a prototype.
No, we haven't.
No, but I don't know what those look like. But this is a prototype. When can we start expecting to see the first customer cars on the road?
Yes, this is obviously first prototype, which is why certain areas are not representative of a final spec car.
Like the interior.
I may have accidentally broken a very small part of the interior when I last saw your car. But it was the little sun visors, and they've got these little hooks on them. And I was like, oh, have you machined these? And I just tapped it, and it fell off immediately.
It's just prototype things. It's fine.
I know. Well, actually, it's not prototype. It's just XJS things.
Was that really?
Yeah.
I mean, some character traits still remain.
Yeah. But yeah, we've got another car in build at the moment, which is going to be prototype 2. That's taken all the sort of learnings from this car, because it was really the first time we put the bodywork, the interior, and the running gear together in one package. We'd had all the running gear operating in our test mule, which was the kind of Mad Max looking thing, for quite a while now. So we knew all of that worked well, but this was the first time we'd put everything else together. So the next car will take the learnings from that, improve it, and will be representative of a custom spec car, which are actually already in build, going through the body and white stage. First delivery should be before the end of the year.
I'm so excited because I've seen this come on really since it was a drawing, because the reason I came along to your workshop is I live about 5 minutes up the road, and then so you guys invited me along to come and have a look at it, and I was just staggered to see how quickly it went from digital rendering to a car to something that is now tearing it up the hill at Goodwood Festival of Speed. So you're doing staggering work. I think it's an absolutely astonishing looking car, and it sounds amazing too. So can we give it up to Fergus, Walkinshaw and Khyzyl, Saleem? But we're also going to do, can we give it a little rev? Is that all right?
Do that.
We're going to fire the car up and give it a bit of a rev. It's quite loud. If anyone was at Goodwood, it really does make quite a lot of noise. So if you want to be around for that, please stay where you are. If you are sensitive in the ear department, I would run that way or that way or that way, anywhere but here. You might also want to step back a little bit if you're in the front row, but we might be all right.
It's not as loud as it was at Goodwood, because Goodwood, when we went to events, said to us, make it as loud as possible.
Great.
So we did straight pipe it for that. So it's not on those at the moment. It's more in a road trim right now.
All right. Okay. Well, great. Well, over to you then, Fergus. You've probably heard of Analogue Automotive, and it's probably sparked a reaction that goes along the lines of, how could somebody try and make analog perfection even better? Well, I've got the man right here to explain what he's up to. Everybody, can you welcome Analogue Automotive's Steffen Dobke, please? You got a mic.
Hello.
Hello, Steffen. Good to see you again. Should we just address the elephant in the room? We've got a lot of fans of the Lotus Elise at PistonHeads. It was voted the best performance car of the last 25 years back in 2023, and that was voted on by the PH community. Everybody thinks it's brilliant, but then again, at the time, it was a 25-year-old car. So what was the point that made you go, yeah, I think I could do this better?
Historically, we've been a Lotus specialist for sort of 15, 20 years. So we've been modifying them and storing them and looking after them for that length of time. So it wasn't a get up in the morning and think, I think I'll build a resto-modded Elise. It was a sort of slow burn, if you like. And during that time, we've probably done suspension work, engine work, but no one seemed to do it all in one package and make it like a cohesive thing. It was just bits and bobs that have been done over time. Painting the Severn Bridge, you do the suspension refresh and 10 litres out, you got to do it again, or an engine in and a head gasket goes, or whatever. Use their head gasket word already.
So if anything, it was just kind of out of necessity. It was a lot easier to just get everything sorted out, and then your customers would be looked after properly. Was there any kind of one particular thing that you had found, that really needed some work, and was it the K series?
Anything steel on an Elise, so the chassis are pretty bomb-proof unless they've had an accident. If you strip one down, look at it, clean it up, they're really, really, really strong little chassis on them. Anything that was steel from the factory, that was a weakness. So that's why we do so much suspension refresh. I think there was zinc plated, the wishbones, but somebody must have walked past us zinc plating. They never got it dipped, and they'd corrode as soon as you looked at them. And then that caused issues with chassis as well, because they used to eat into it. But engine-wise, they had their issues, but they were a basic engine built by Rover and supposed to be in the front of Freeland or whatever, and in the back of a car that got thrashed from cold, so they had issues.
Absolutely. I think it's probably one to talk about, because for any of you who maybe watch the PH YouTube channels, Steffen and I did a buying guide on the Series 1 Elise a couple of months ago, and we got to the engine. It'd be kind of good to go over what you do with a K series, because they are basically, if you don't know, they're known for blowing up at 40,000 miles, particularly if they're ragged. What you've done is you've worked your magic on it, but it's not like you're now producing 500-600 horsepower. It's, well, I think in the original build, was it 218?
Yeah, so a normal Elise was 118 PS, so it wasn't even horsepower. The Super Sport, the first generation, was just over. It was 209, so I called it 210. We sort of detuned that base engine, so it's now 200, but it revs nicely, got a nice torque curve. This one is 200, just under 230 horsepower. So that's knocking on double what the original one was.
And can you kind of talk us through what goes into getting a K series up to that, and also being able to do it reliably?
Well, it's chucking a lot of money at it.
Yes.
So we use a K series head. The block is an N series, so that's from a later car. So typically a turbo car. And then the bottom end is fully forged. So we forged crank, forged rods, forged pistons. Biggest valves we can get in there. use Piper cams. Our own ECU, which is an EFI ECU, which is from a later generation OEM sort of Lotus car. So if you see a 2004, 5, or even Toyota cars, they'll use an EFI. A lot more sensors in it, so it'll know what's going on. So the emissions are good. It'll start on the button. If anyone's ever driven a Sport 160 or 190, they had to pray to the gods that it would start up. Whereas this, I can put my hand in there and turn it without. So it's like a normal car. Revs about 8.5. And touch wood, our demo car, the black one that's had a lot of press, that's just been thrashed by every journalist and his mum, and it's still going strong. So
yeah, I left my mum at home for that one.
Okay.
But I did come to yours and drive the black one, and yeah, again, it's done the rounds. That was your Elise essentially.
Yes,
it was a dev car.
Started as my Elise, and then we sort of built. The proof of concept was around the wide track suspension, which makes the body look bigger, but it isn't. And then putting a larger engine in and basically just refining everything we could, updating the lights, updating the heater, making it as we'd want. The heaters in these are notoriously bad and the lights are really dim and you have to keep tapping them to get the side lights on and all this sort of stuff that nowadays we don't really want to put up with. So
I think that's kind of the case for a lot of these. I don't think the R word is quite liked in the Analogue Automotive halls. So these
coming round to it apparently.
Yeah, okay. These improved classics.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to find the right terminology for it.
No one's got it.
But it's kind of when you go in one of those and then go back to the original, you go, oh my God, the difference is just huge.
So we've got a 20,000 mile bog standard Elise that we use like a pallet cleanser. If someone's come in and they've had an Elise before and they may be revisiting it, we'll send them out in that one so they can sort of see they're fantastic cars, don't get me wrong, but they'll rattle, the under trays will be resonating, the windows might fall down. It's they've got nice light steering, but they probably don't handle quite as well as this does. And then you put it into that, and it feels like a different car.
Because that is the really tricky thing, I guess, with what you're doing. If you take, say, a reimagined by Singer or a Theon or something like that, there's obviously a hell of a lot of work that goes into the engineering to make it feel superb, but they make them luxurious. There is this element of you get in and it's like pillowy leather and it's all very lovely. Whereas you're constantly facing this battle of, I need to make this feel better, but I've got to keep it light. I've got to keep it simple. How do you balance that?
So there's no single, on some of our cars we're saving 70, 80 kilos. There's not a single 80 kilo lump we just leave out. It's lots of tiny little details. It's wiring looms, it's, carbon seats instead of the big old heavy seats. That carbon boot lid on there, I was just saying to one of your colleagues that a standard boot lid's about 4 or 5 kilos, a carbon one's 1.7. So there's a massive amount of weight just in that. Wishbones, we have our own wishbones made, which are wider track. That saves about 1 kilo a corner. The wheels are lighter, brakes are lighter. Carbon, as much as we can do, depending on people's budget. So there's a lot. And then because we're saving so much weight, we can put in not a huge amount of sound deadening, but the floor pan inside the fuel tank is all sound deadened. So basically everything's sort of hip level lower down, so you don't drive over a twig and hear it hit stone hit underside, which it makes it feel more solid.
There is sound deadening in there, but when I drove your black Super Sport, it's the first time in a video where I've lost my voice. It was all really quite embarrassing. So I'm 32, and I got 5 minutes into the drive and I sounded like a teenager. It's really squeaky. And it was so humiliating. But it's because I was having so much fun. And it was really quite loud. It was all from the engine.
Yeah, exactly. So pretty much that's why I say waist down where the tub is, the rear, because it's got no stereo in it. I mean, I have been asked a few times, but at the moment I'm digging my heels in that you want to hear those throttle bodies behind you. So all that, there's no sound deadening there. So that's where you're listening to that exhaust note and induction noise.
It sounded extraordinary. It's such a good sounding car. Let's kind of have a look at the suspension now, because this is probably what the Elise is famous for. Beautifully set up. And then you come in here, Steffen, and you start messing about with it. So what kind of goes into your reworking of the damping and the kind of the geometry of Super Sport?
Well, going back, so again, historically, I've always had a relatively good reputation for setting up cars. So we're sort of one of those sort of go-to people historically for a good few years. So, we know how to set an Elise up, and I've got my own thoughts on how they should be. With a Super Sport, it was a bit twofold. One, just running Nitron dampers. But the first shock we got was when we just bought a normal set of dampers I've been using for years, put them on there, and it felt like it was rock solid. And that's when we weighed the car and realised how much weight we'd taken out of it. So then we had to lower the spring rates, adjust the damping accordingly. But trying to, it's a good car on track, but it's primarily a road car. So we're based down in West Sussex, not far from Goodwood. And those roads, which seem quite similar to around here, nice B roads, that's where it's built to. So it's got supple suspension. It's not too stiff. You can go on track and stiffen it up if you want. Wishbones we lengthened. That was to give it a bit more track. It's a trick that the racers used to space out the wheels to give it a wider front end. We just did it properly with wider, longer wishbones. But yeah, it was just lots of small tweaks, and having historically not woken up one morning thinking I'm going to rest on my day an Elise and I don't know anything about them. We've sort of got that history behind us.
You can tell with the way it was set up, because I took it for a test drive around the roads of West Sussex, and it's a fantastic place to drive a car. I took it to Goodwood. The roads around Goodwood are astonishing, the racecourse, and it was just sublime. One of the best cars I've driven around there, because it's been built for road use.
Built for
but that was, as we were saying, that was the development car. This, however, this is the car that you showed off at Goodwood.
Yes.
A month ago. So what's different?
So that black car was the first, I wouldn't say it was cobbled together. It was proof of concept, because we hadn't painted it to the same standard as this. Didn't have the same fit and finish as this has, particularly on the trim. Had the wide track, had the engine, had all the engineering behind it. But it was, to be honest, it was done on a budget to get it featured on magazines and get customers driving it rather than being a render. So that was, if we want to say, pre-production model. This is the first UK delivered. We've got other cars. 80% of our business is going abroad. So it's nice to see a UK car. And coincidentally, he was a year ago at Goodwood. He saw us at our stand there. And then we came here a few weeks later, same sort of time. And he sort of signed the deal. So this is a year on, take a year to build. So we pushed, and it's here. We handed it over at Goodwood. We were fortunate enough to go up the hill in Goodwood with it. So I took the customer up there, and his car just needs to be PPF'd, and then it's off to its new home.
You were just saying to me earlier, this isn't just a slightly polished up version of the Super Sport that I drove a couple of months back. You've managed to make some improvements with this as well.
Yeah, I think, again, that's nothing against the black car, but it's very much a development demo car, and it's done its job. But then I took this out just before Goodwood, and it literally made the black one feel like a bag of spanners. So we've taken that black one apart now, and sort of, if that's what we can do, I need to do that to the black one. It's only some minor updates. He's got the carbon front end I'm going to paint it properly, which is sort of treat it to that. I didn't redo the subframe on the demo car, didn't have an alloy tank. So there's a few bits that we need to sort of just up spec it. But yeah, this is a full production car, customer delivered car. So we spend that extra time, day before Goodwood, I was spending 4.5 hours each door just making sure they lined up and the windows fit properly and all the fit and finishes as it should be.
And there's more power?
Yes. Yeah.
So what are we up to now?
That is, that has a special head. I had to search. So normally it should be about 210, 220. This has got 230 horsepower.
And I think the incredible thing is getting those gains from a naturally aspirated engine that is traces its roots back 30 odd years.
Yeah. But it's a great little lightweight engine. So it's worth the development, and we've had to develop quite a few bits for it and sort of build relationships with engine builders and with parts suppliers, which everyone's got a good love. So when you sort of say it's for an Elise, they seem to be on board. So all our suppliers we're really fortunate with that. They sort of get on board with it and want to help out, and then when they can see what you do, and when they see a sort of finished product, it's not a render. That's why we built that first car. I didn't want to just sort of we're going to do a rest of mod. Here's a render of it, and it never becomes anything. So it was a case of build it and they will come, which seems to have happened.
I think what's more impressive though is that you just told me that this is even lighter than the Super Sport, which I'm not entirely sure how you do it, because they're so light to begin with. You made it lighter with the Super Sport.
Yep.
Well, how much have you saved, and how?
It's lots a little bit. So for instance, the Super Sport, which was just under 700 kilos, had the standard Victory alloys on it, which are like lead weight, so they're really heavy. So the new Revolution wheels are lighter, so that saves about 2.5 kilos per wheel. This will have carbon ceramic brakes on it, which it has at the moment, but that's another 2.5. So this was with a full tank of fuel for Goodwood, because I didn't want to run out of petrol going up the hill. It's got a 40 plus litre tank. It was just over 700 kilos. So without that fuel, that's down to sort of 670.
Incredible. It's so unbelievably light. So obviously this isn't a stock colour. No. And for those who can't see, because it's obviously quite a low car. We have a beautifully retrimmed interior, which is kind of like a, how would I just get a camel tobacco kind?
Yeah, it's tobacco. Yeah, we were going to go darker, but yeah, that's all part of the process. So this is a paint to sample. This is based on a Porsche. I think it was sort of chalk or crayon grey.
Yeah.
Which we just tweaked a little bit, which works quite well with the carbon. And then, we just go through. It's part of the process of going through. And I think the customer's a bit disappointed now he's got the car, to be honest, because he's got nothing else to talk about. So the journey of sort of speccing and watching it being built and choosing trim and should we do this, should we do that, is all part of the journey. So
well, that's the fun of it, isn't it? Not that I've had the pleasure of speccing up my Supersport yet, but it's kind of making it your own. Just how personalised can you go with something like this, bearing in mind that there's not a huge amount to actually personalise?
Yeah, well, there's so obviously things like colour, interior. There's a lot of carbon trim. Whether you I've got one particular customer from Texas who's really anti-carbon, so we're sort of trying to find ways of jazzing up without using any carbon. Or if it is carbon, we'll paint it. So he's got carbon boot lid, but he'll paint it inside and out. So he just doesn't want to. He's obviously got something about carbon. But he likes the lightweight element. So even the binnacle, we're painting a grey to look like the original one, but it will be carbon. So there's lots of offshoots. I mean, we've got a basic price list and options list, and then anything above that, for instance, the Terra we've got on our stand, which is a slightly lifted one, that's, and I'll blatantly admit I've nicked the ASO, which is Analogue Special Operations off MSO, McLaren.
Nice.
It works. But if someone comes and says, I want to do this, then we'll look at that. And that's not always Lotus-based. We've got a couple of non-Lotus projects in the works as well, which are people like to see what we're doing, the engineering behind it, and then we can do other cars.
Yeah, talk me through, because this is the Goodwood car. This isn't the only car that you've bought.
No.
I saw you building that one last time I was there, and it was a very nicely painted shell.
Yeah.
But you've actually bought it here. So what's it called, and what's different about it to something like the Supersport here?
Yeah, so it's based on a Supersport, but the idea there was a bit of a collab between Cannondale Bikes, I'm into bikes, and Raw Bike Co. is a local bike shop, to have something you could put a bike on, which is why it's got the C-sucker mounts. And then if you're going to go bike, you need something slightly lifted. So I didn't want to go with a sort of big monster truck, sort of lifted look, but it is a bit more like a Porsche Dakar, something like that. So it's quite, I remember seeing a black Porsche Dakar and I sort of double take on it because it was something a bit different on it, but you couldn't see all the, when they're layerly painted, you sort of see they're quite obviously lifted. But it's got, coincidentally, Michelin cross climate tyres, your co-sponsors. So lifted, instead of being 120, 130 ride height from the ground, which this is, it's 180. It's got Olean suspension on it and a lot of Kevlar. So I've gone quite heavily Kevlar roof, Kevlar boot lid, Kevlar underneath. But they're all one-off items. That's quite a spendy car, but it's a sort of a one-off.
Can you see the Kevlar?
Oh, yes.
So it looks like an 037 underneath. Oh, that's really cool.
Carbon boot lid, but inside's been A-surfaced with Kevlar. We've got carbon, where we would use carbon to reinforce underneath bulkheads and stuff. That's all in Kevlar. Front under tray, rear under tray, roof, seats.
Basically trying to make sure that people can only use Elises in their life. So
that's our ultimate goal.
That's great. We've now got a practical option that you can actually drive somewhere else. All we need is maybe put some seats on the roof, and then you've got a family car.
Exactly. Trailer.
So that's what we've got going on the Elise front. Well, when I was last at your workshop, there were some other things in there.
Yes.
Is there any more you can divulge?
Well, we had
what we're up to.
Yeah, there's stuff coming. So there's a couple I can't. We got some non-Lotus projects. One of which is a big one that's going to be quite expensive and exciting. And then we got same customer from Texas decided that I'm a sort of guy who likes weird aluminium chassis cars, in his own words, and shipped me one of the sort of the rarest Tommy Kyra. That there is, a ZZR, which is a racing one, which we're doing a full restoration on.
This is, I think you probably could tell the kind of human being I was within the first 5 minutes of meeting, of where I walk past all your lovely cars and they go, is that a Tommy Kyra ZZ?
Yeah, they're quite rare.
They're extremely rare. But I mean, it looks absolutely fantastic.
But he's seen what we've done on his Supersport build and he was just like, obviously, it's a similar chassis, slightly different, but the Elise, that and the Sport Spider, Renault Sport Spider, are quite sort of similar in age and construction, although they're welded rather than bonded. So it's not outside of, I've never seen one before, but it's not outside of our realms of expertise because it's a similar sort of construction. And he wanted it was a race car, so it was quite shabby, so he wanted it finished like this. So we've done quite a nice paint job on it, and the inside will be trimmed as well.
I don't know if that's going to be publicly available when it is, but I can't wait to see what that looks like, because I've only seen them really shabbily put together, because they were also built in Norfolk as well, weren't they?
Yes, yeah. I had to go. That was literally, I think that was found in a ex-factory up high. Someone had bought it, done a bit of restoration on it. That's got, I believe it's got a touring car, a Primera touring car engine in it as well. So that's like 280 horsepower. Yeah, so that'll be, but we'll have that. I think before that's ultimately going. He's texting, it's going to go out to Japan. But I think we'll have that for a little bit, and that will be seen. Well, I've got to test it on track for a start. Yes,
I tell you what,
service, sir.
Having come away from your workshop, I found it to be a bit of a dream factory, because you see, particularly when you see kind of Steffen's passion that goes into this and how it is every single nut and bolt is improved. It just makes you want to do that to your own car. Unfortunately, I don't have quite the budget to do it for my Fiesta ST just yet. But again, it's another passion project that we've come up here. We've got up here. It drives brilliantly, and I can't wait to feel if that was the bag of bolts in the original Super Sport, and this is a lot more refined. I can't wait to drive it. I think it's
more than welcome. You need to come back up again.
Fantastic. Steffen, thank you so much. Give it up for Steffen and Analogue Automotive.
Thank you.
Cheers.